Fascism is taking hold. Revolutionaries are organizing. Creatives are trying to capture the ineffable nature of their changing city. It's 1928, and as everything falls apart, everyone is faced with a choice: abandon the city or fight to survive. Berlin, based on Jason Lutes' exhilarating and acclaimed graphic novel, is playing now through May 18th at the Court Theater in Hyde Park. This is Reno Lovison, executive producer at ChicagoBroadcastingNetwork.com, and I'm excited to introduce a new contributor to our podcast, Kim Campbell. Kim is a member of the American Theater Critics Association, a communications specialist, copywriter, editor, and arts writer who served as a copywriter for Paramount and Copley Theaters. With background in art criticism, editing, and marketing, Kim has worked with publications like the Chicago Reader, Arts Midwest, and Third Coast Review. We're happy to have her add ChicagoBroadcastingNetwork.com to that esteemed list. Welcome, Kim.
Time traveling through Berlin. This coming June, I'll be taking a trip to Berlin. I've not been there since the 80s when I tentatively crossed over Checkpoint Charlie with my friends to explore the East German side of the city. I remember so few things except a town devoid of advertisements, with cars all the same model in 3 colors: gray, black, or white. On the West Berlin side, colorful graffiti on the wall told how its citizens felt about the forced separation. When the wall came down in 1989, I thought of the impact on all the inhabitants there. How would lives be changed? Would surviving family and friends reconnect and share their stories, or would they be filled with bitterness and regret? The 3-volume graphic novel Berlin, written by Jason Lutes, takes a different time period of that city into consideration. Situated between the First and Second World Wars, it focuses not on the atrocities yet to come, but on the conditions needed for fascism to arise. A new theatrical adaptation by Mickle Maher and directed by Charles Newell dives into the stories of 13 characters, illuminating the events through their perspectives. Its world premiere was at Court Theater this past week on Chicago's South Side. The story of Berlin is a case study of how things can go wrong when a country has suffered loss and trauma. As its citizens and leaders slowly turn away from collaborative solutions and towards stark divisions in power, they turn towards a dark fascist vision, and a slow-motion disaster unfolds. Everyone can sense it, but no one person has the power to prevent it. It begins with overlapping tales, with emphasis being given to the ingenue and art student Martha Muller, played by Raven Whitley. As the latest hayseed to drift into the big city of Berlin, she immediately starts exploring romantic relationships. Marta plays an aloof cat-and-mouse game with her smitten friend and art school love Anna Lanka, played by Mo Shipley, and starts to date an older man, Kurt Severin, played by Tim Decker. Kurt is a conflicted journalist whose affair with Marta helps distract him from work. He's trying, unsuccessfully, to maintain a neutral perspective on political events. Sound familiar? Like many of the artists around him, he struggles with feeling ineffectual and blocked. For each of the characters, the need to protect and distract oneself grows in direct proportion to an increasingly authoritarian state. Other characters add context to the times, such as the travails of a family, Gudrun, Sylvia, and Otto, torn apart by political ideologies. Gudrun is drawn to communism and Otto is drawn to Nazism in response to the same societal deprivations of unemployment, hunger, and poverty. As the relationships become more and more entangled, the tensions rise politically, mirroring each other and leading to an unraveling in tandem of people's hope and safety. The characters often step outside of the story to provide historical context, as when Kurt establishes some cultural insights by announcing, "In Berlin of 1928, fine art and revolutionary politics are joined at the hip." The one lone Jewish perspective in the story is from communist paper hawker and 12-year-old David Schwartz, played by Jack Dougherty. He informs us that at the time Berlin had over 200 newspapers, and he didn't want his father to know he was selling one of them. He encounters anti-Semitism from Sylvia, played by Ellie Duffy, an orphan on the run. Even at that age, David understands how he can use humor to diffuse the situation and disprove her misconceptions, and soon they ignore societal taboos to develop a friendship. It's impossible not to see Berlin as a sort of cautionary tale positioned as it is in this moment in history. Then, a cabaret full of gay folks raided by the police and imprisoned. Now, 575 anti-LGBT bills currently being considered around the USA. The lives of journalists, artists, workers, citizens, and immigrants hangs in the balance now, just as it did then. Yet then, as now, a stunned type of paralysis takes over, making people hide away, avoid realities, and disassociate as they dig deeper into their own dramas. In Berlin, it's the organizer Otto Schmidt who tries to get people to wake up to the risks, to focus on the ideological battle ahead, to gather and to organize. At moments, under the device of there being a hearing to discuss what took place in Berlin, the text becomes prescriptive in breaking down the historical complexities. For example, when Otto Schmidt and Kurt provide a mini lesson on the KPD in order to prime the audience for the coming scene, an actual historical event known as WWI. The massacre by police brutality on International Workers' Day, May 1st, was in reaction to a protest on an enforced ban on public gathering in Berlin in 1929. I point this out in case you feel the need to draw parallels between Chicago, considering a teen curfew in response to the unrest that is bubbling up in current times. If characters providing historical context of Berlin sometimes runs the risk of being distracting, it also anchors the story and connects our two time periods quite viscerally. During WWI, new party member Gudrun Braun, played by Elizabeth Laidlaw, is shot, leaving her teenage daughter Sylvia to fend for herself. What emerges from the loss of the sweet maternal protection of Gudrun is the menacing presence of Hitler, also played to perfection by Elizabeth Laidlaw. The intensity of the character she plays rises in the remaining scenes just as steadily as Hitler's historical figure rose to power, culminating in an eerie frisson of sound and word salad the moment the takeover becomes absolute. One sweet diversion throughout the tale is Marta's obsession with drawing faces. She begins by drawing an audience member and continues at moments throughout the show. The two cabaret performers, Kid Hogan, played by Terry Bell, and Paula Moss, played by Molly Hernandez, are also spots of lightness in the gloom. Their budding romance, their singing and ebullient presence, cheers the bar patrons they perform for just as it does the audience. We take pleasure in their joy, even if we know in advance that they cannot escape the times. At one point, Kid Hogan stands on a table to sing a slithering Goebbels impression that is as spellbinding as it is bone-chillingly creepy. As racist incidents are increasingly directed towards them, Kid and Paula decide to flee the city for Paris before the war begins, only to die in the rubble of their bombed Paris apartment a few years later. Although it's not the light-hearted, distracting tale we want at this moment in history to soothe us, Berlin might be the tale we need right now. Senior artistic producer Gabrielle Randall Bent elegantly described Court Theater's take on interpreting classics when she spoke on the opening panel at Hull House's recent launch of the Act Dwell Your Part exhibit and festival earlier this month. She said, "What if a classic is something that we needed? We don't have to just make classics, we define what that is. The most fun part is this notion that a canon is this bag that you carry on your back from one generation to another, and you don't have a lot of space in it. It's the stuff that they needed to survive before. It's the stuff we need to survive today. And most importantly, it's the stuff that as stewards of stories we're charged with carrying for the next generation." This tale is one of people stunned by events unfolding around them, driven to action too late, and desperate to escape oppression. Twice during the hearings to address historical events, Kurt says, "Imagine if such hearings could take place before the catastrophes they address occur. If only we could calmly assess, get facts, recreate the chain prior to everything going to hell." The follow-up question hanging in the air, would we be able to prevent it from happening then? You can catch Berlin Now extended through May 18th at Court Theater in Hyde Park, Chicago. Tickets at courttheater.com.
Thanks, Kim. I hope we'll be hearing more from you in the coming months. I've invited Kim to offer theatrical reviews and stories involving Chicago topics on a periodic basis. Please be sure to subscribe to our website or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts to be alerted when new content is added. Just search Chicago Broadcasting Network. This is Reno Lovison, executive producer at ChicagoBroadcastingNetwork.com. If you have a story regarding a significant experience that was part of your life that you'd like to preserve for posterity, visit renoweb.net to learn about personal and family history video production. A professionally crafted family history video ensures that your loved ones will hear your story in your own voice forever. I'd like to conclude with a shout out to all the local Chicago business owners and entrepreneurs who were present at the Northside Networking event this month at the Breakers on Sheridan Road, a senior lifestyle residence at Edgewater Beach in Chicago, moderated by CJ Jelinek of Jelinek Solutions. My wife, Julie Lovison, director of the Lakeshore Music Studio, providing piano lessons for all ages, and avid CTA rider, wants me to remind you that there's a piece of the Berlin Wall on display at the Brown Line Western Stop. So if you're a Brown Line rider or just exploring the city, take the Brown Line out to Western and go into the lobby, and you will find a piece of the actual Berlin Wall there that you can touch and see and take a picture in front of. Explore Chicago and explore the world.